Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to create an individualized schedule for a student during remote learning. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing this for every student as it can be quite time-consuming. But for students who need extra support, navigating between classes, this can be a very good option. So for starters, it's nice to use a Google Doc because a Google Doc actually acts like a website, and the student can bookmark the Google Doc and have it linked directly to their bookmark bar. So let's get started with that. To create a new Google Doc, you can click on this waffle menu and go to Docs, and then select a blank document. And then we can start by titling the document something that would really make sense to the student, like Students' Daily Schedule. And then hit Enter. And then if we want to title it here, we can do the same. Actually, I should have done this first because then it would have gone up into the title automatically, but that's okay. Now, one nice thing to do is to put in tables, and the tables can really help organize and structure these things that we're putting in. So to put in a table, you can click on the Insert menu, and then hover over Table, and then tell the document how many cells you want in the table. In my mind, I'm thinking we can, maybe the student has to navigate between 5 different subjects in a day. And so let's do a 3x6 table, actually, and I'll show you why in just a second. So on our headings, we can have the different things that each of these columns will represent. So perhaps the left column is the time. And then maybe the middle column is the subject. And the column to the right could be the actual Zoom link. The Zoom links are pretty long and times are pretty short, so you can adjust the size of your table by clicking on the line in between the cells and just clicking and dragging. And you'll see how that resizes my table lines a little bit. Zoom links are also longer, so maybe we want to have that a little bit bigger. Now, another thing that I've noticed is that Google Docs defaults to being 8.5 by 11 size and a vertical page orientation. And what will happen is, especially students that have to navigate between many different classes, is this will get really long and it'll be on multiple pages, and we don't really want that. So we can change the page orientation by going into File and then scrolling down to Page Setup. Portrait's actually going to work. That's like the vertical orientation that we're probably usually used to using, but this letter size paper does not. So I just selected the largest paper size I could find, which was this tabloid, and say OK. And now we're working from a much bigger table. If we want to, we can also center these things by highlighting it and clicking here. Now we can start building the daily schedule of time. So maybe the student starts in the morning at 8:45, and then maybe they have their first subject change at 9:45, and really I'm just making this up right now. Maybe they go to a different class at 12:05, another one at 1:20 or something, and then the final meeting at 3 o'clock that day. We can put in the subjects here. So maybe this is, morning meeting, check-in. Put what makes sense for what the student's actually going to. Maybe this is their math time. Maybe this is their reading time. Maybe this is social emotional. And maybe this is afternoon meeting. You can organize that structure however you like. Then, if we're using the same Zoom link for these meetings, we can actually just click and paste that same Zoom link all the way through. But what we've been finding is students are going to classes with many different teachers, and so they're going to need additional Zoom links in here to connect properly to those different classes. So it would be very helpful if the teacher leading each of these classes could share the Zoom meeting links with whoever's building these schedules, and they can be copied and pasted into that Zoom link section. So maybe the Zoom link for the first, the morning check-in, we can get that copied and pasted in, and then just continue this process of finding these Zoom links and pasting them in the proper place. And we'll go ahead and do this all the way down till all the Zoom links are in there. 2 more. And almost done. There we go. Now we can make this look a little bit better even than it already does. I mean, maybe we want to make these subject lines bold. I have my Google Docs by default at 12-point font, but students may need that a little bit bigger, so we can highlight the entire table. Oops, let's Control Z that. I just slipped. We can highlight the entire table and make the size 14 or whatever, whatever you think is most useful to the student. Now, another thing that I found very useful is we can color code these cells so that the students can be directed to what they should click on by the color that it is. So I kind of like to just stick with Roy G. Biv as much as possible, but if we highlight all of the cells in a specific row, we can click over here and click this paint bucket tool, and we can start with a lighter shade of red, and then we'll highlight the next row and we'll choose a lighter shade of orange, and the next row, and you're I'm sure getting the idea here, we'll just pick like a lighter shade of yellow, and then we're going to do green, and we'll close out the day with a nice blue color. And this will just kind of keep the students straight about what they're clicking on. If we want to color up here, we could certainly do that as well, just to separate it all out. And be creative, do whatever you want here. The last thing that we'll want to do is make sure that these Zoom links are hyperlinked. And if you're copying and pasting them and they're actual real live Zoom links, they'll probably be hyperlinked by default. You can see these are not real ones, but on your keyboard, well, you can click and highlight them so they're highlighted. And then you can either click this little guy, or, and by the way, these are definitely fake, or you can highlight them and on your keyboard hit Control K. And Control K is actually one of my most favorite keyboard shortcuts because it's just so quick to get these things hyperlinked, and it's less like clicking with the mouse. But if you're a mouse type person, feel absolutely free to use that chain link up above. Now, for some students, it's still going to be really difficult to read through this and to find where they need to go. So another thing that we can do is in each subject area, find some image that would make sense for where they're supposed to go. I've also heard of people having the idea of pasting a picture of the teacher who they're going to go see at that time. And that can really help students to navigate this as well. So if we're looking for an image for morning meeting or check-in, this is where we can start using the Explore tool. And if you're not familiar with this, it's pretty slick. You can click on that Explore tool and then click in the search. And this first subject is the morning meeting or the check-in. So, what Google's doing now is it's trying to figure out what I'm doing here. But let's search for check. And we're going to hit enter, and then I can click on images and look at all these images that I can choose for a check mark. So to insert one of these images into my table, I can just click this plus sign if I like that one, and it'll drop it right where my cursor was in the table. If I feel like that's too large, I can click on it and resize it a little bit, just kind of make it further down. If I want to, I can center that, of course. Here it is. Thanks for bearing with me. They move that on you sometimes. So now it's nice and centered in that table. And then we can go ahead and do the same sort of thing for math. We can search for math here and see what kind of images Google finds for us. So many choices. Just pick something that would clearly show the student that they're going to math class, maybe a cartoonish person standing in front of numbers. We choose what you like. Just want to make sure that it's really clear, and we can repeat this process also for reading, and you're getting the idea now, I'm sure. And look at all these choices we have for reading, and we can scroll through until we find one that really will communicate to the student where they're supposed to be going. That one looks fine. And so then each of these can have an image that, of course, you can resize there as well. Now, what we'll want to do now is share this document with probably all of the students' teachers, just so that they're aware of where the students are going. So, and could update Zoom links here if they needed to too, if somebody needed to change their Zoom link. So to share it with other teachers, we can click on the share button. And as soon as this loads up, we'll be ready to go. And here we go. We can type the names of teachers that we may want to send this to in this box here. And so I'll type the name of one of my colleagues here, and let's say we want to share it with her. And this gives her the option to edit this. And for our teachers, that's really what we want. And then we would leave this checked so they could be notified, and that this is being shared with them, and then we would send it their way. And you can put many different teachers here. Now, I'm not actually going to share this since this is just a sample, so I'm going to cancel that out, but that's what you do. And you're also going to want to share it with the student. Now, on the student's end of things, we don't really want the student to be editing it, and the reason why is we don't want them to accidentally delete something. So we can type the name of the student, and I'm going to use just a fake account for right now. And then instead of giving them editing privileges, we're going to allow them just to view it. So we click on Viewer. That way they can see the schedule, they can interact with it, they can click on the hyperlinks, but there's no chance that they'll accidentally delete it. Then we can send it to the student because really we want them to have it. And they'll be able to find a link to this schedule in their email. Once they have that, they can create a bookmark. Now, to create a bookmark, they click on this little star up in the URL, up in the address bar rather. So they can click on that little star, and we're going to just want them to put this in their bookmarks bar right here. I have my bookmarks organized into folders, but for students, if they just select that bookmarks bar, it will put this bookmark, let's go ahead and tell it we're done. It'll put this bookmark right in their bar. Now, as you can see, I have a lot of bookmarks, but if I wanted to move that, there it is. I could come up here and slide it so it's just right there, and we can teach the students that if they want to get to their daily schedule, no matter what tab they have open, they can click on that link right in the center of their page. It'll load up their daily schedule, and then they can click on those Zoom links to join their Zoom meetings with their various teachers without having to try to navigate to different courses. As soon as they open Google Chrome, their schedule will be right there. So those are the steps for creating this with students, sharing it with their teachers, and then making sure that the students are able to bookmark their daily schedule on the bookmark bar. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.